Thursday, March 2nd. Wow, can't believe it's March already. Do we have anyone on Zoom? No, right?
Is Kathleen?
No, Kathleen was having a transportation issue coming out and may or may not make it, so. All right, so,
Lisa?
I've lost track of my memory. If we don't on Zoom, I don't have to do an attendance roll call.
Correct.
So we're good to get started. So, Jim, where do you want to begin?
So I think,
Tonight is
Snow and ice.
snow and ice, but did you guys talk about that on Monday?
so
Okay.
that one's an easy one. Recommend no action on that.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion.
Thank you. I was gonna say.
No action on Article 9.
Is it not? So that's, let me get this together. Actually, and again, I don't have to. I gotta get used to.
Can I get a second, though?
Yeah, we did. We got it from Brian.
Right.
So, Doug, Brian. All in favor?
For no action.
For no action.
No action.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Opposed? Abstain? So, 3 minus 3, so that's 12? No, minus 4, sorry. 11, 0, 0. Yeah.
Correct. Is that 10 0 0? Oh,
11 0.
11 0.
I'm all screwed up here. I was doing these kind of checklists and signing everyone in.
Sorry.
No, no problem.
Wait, Denny, if you want it,
It's 10, 11, yeah.
so 11 0 0.
Yep.
Okay. Just a few easy things for tonight before we get to, the other one recommended no action is the current in-year budget adjustment for sewer and water. So Article 5, recommend no action. We're actually trending in a good direction for water. And same with Article 7, recommend no action.
A motion on Article 5?
So moved.
Josette? Doug? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That's 11-0-0. And then, was it Article?
7.
7?
Move for no action on Article 7.
Mark and Brian? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 11-0-0.
I believe Tamara is here for Walpole Media Corp. for their budget.
Walpole Media Corp?
Yeah.
Perfect. How are you?
I'm good, how are you? I'm Tamara Green, the Executive Director of Walpole Media Corporation. I believe there are a couple of new Finance Committee members, so I'm just going to give a brief history of who we are and what we do and how we service the community. We broadcast over 3 channels on Comcast and Verizon. So if you subscribe to Comcast and Verizon and haven't yet cut the cable, which we hope no one does, you can see us. We broadcast live. Also, we stream on our website. And we are here for the community. We cover gavel-to-gavel coverage of municipal meetings. We cover high school sports. We cover human interest, public interest type stories, and we've got some talk shows as well. We also do a monthly news program that was started about a year ago. And I usually start my presentation by saying that we have zero impact on the town's budget. Our funding comes 100% from cable subscribers, and that money through Comcast and Verizon gets siphoned off to the town, who holds the money for us. And every year we come here and we make a recommendation. We present our budget, we present our capital request, and the amount of money that we are requesting to be taken from the account that is holding our money to our account. So it's a pretty simple transaction. And again, I want to reiterate, we have zero impact whatsoever on the tax dollars, town's budget, taxpayers, anything like that.
Wonderful. Any questions? Go ahead, sir.
So I have two questions. The payroll staff, for that amount of money, how many staff members are there?
There are, including myself, there are 3 full-time, 1 part-time, and additionally, the teacher at the high school who teaches the TV production classes does some part-time work for us as well.
Okay. And then with, so your costs are relatively independent from the thing. Who audits your costs?
We have our own CPA firm.
You
that
do?
audits
Okay,
us.
great, thank you.
Brian?
First off, I just want to say thank you for what you do and all that you provide to the community. I think it's really improved over the last few years tremendously, so thank you.
Thank you.
I did have one question. Just on the subscriptions on Telview, I saw a pretty large increase there, and just wondering what that is.
Yeah, they haven't raised their fees in a number of years, especially during the pandemic. They know that a lot of the public access stations are hurting, and so now that they think we're over, the slump, they have raised their fees dramatically. But Telview, again, is the system that allows us to broadcast live, so they are essential to our services.
Thank you.
Question, on the projecting going forward with more people, I know younger generations not subscribing to cable streaming services and whatnot. Are there concerns about long-term budgets and impact from there?
Absolutely. There isn't a single cable station in the country that isn't concerned with it. And every single one is coming up with ideas how to monetize their channels. So for example, we're starting a business sponsorship program where businesses can sponsor us. I think eventually something like monetizing our video on demand, which is our YouTube channel, might be something that we'll have to look at.
Wonderful, thank you. Josette?
I want to echo Brian's comments. You've done an outstanding job the last few years under your tutelage. Speaking for the COA, you've been amazing. And the way the people that represent you and the way they splice everything together, they do an outstanding job. They should be credited as well as yourself.
Thank you. I will make sure that they know that.
Any other questions? Sorry.
I thought he'd be asked this question, so I'll answer the question before it's asked. That's what Jody and I were just, so the current balance in that account is $1,272,913. We usually range anywhere between 59,000 or up to 72, 73,000 per quarter collected from each vendor, Verizon and Comcast. So it's still consistently coming in. But Denny, I understand what you're saying. I'm thinking about switching to just YouTube TV and just getting through Comcast. So yeah.
I didn't hear that.
I mean, that is a long-term concern. I don't think it's anything we have to worry about the next 2
When we originally
years.
set this up, this budget request is about 400, mid-400s or something like that. When we set this up, the thought was, okay, this may be coming down the road. Let's at least set ourselves up so we have some operating budgets for about 2 or 3 years. And then we'd have to make some tough decisions. But I think the service that's provided, and I've worked with Gene and Tamara on making sure, like, when we want to get caught up on meetings, like Patrick and I will sometimes have it running in the background just on the YouTube channel, there's a benefit for it. And even if it goes away eventually, we'll need to keep this service one way or another,
Yeah.
whether it's funded through the town ourselves or something. So we've talked about teaming with them to get some media arm too, also as a part of Local Media Corp. So
And it's not going to go down to zero. It's just maybe declining revenue streams. So the fact that there's plenty in the fund there. Sorry, Mark.
Through you, where do we stand on actual contracts and termination dates with the 2 cable companies?
So both contracts are up this year. We successfully negotiated a contract with Comcast. We're in the middle of one with Verizon. I honestly expect that the Comcast one went very easy. The Verizon one's pretty close to being done. They're pretty standard in everything. It's just more or less a continuation of the terms and making sure that they continue to give us 5% right tomorrow, which is where they get their funding source. And we have some capital improvement funds, so, minimal capital improvement funds. I
Is
think it's-
is the 5% a government mandated percentage? Or is
The
that
cap you
negotiated?
can get is 5%,
Okay,
and it's up to
yeah.
each community
So
to
we
negotiate.
negotiate with them and we try to get
We
the
get
cap
2
of
to
5%.
5%. Yeah,
All righty.
Yes, I had a question about this page, the summary of the Media Corps requests. The information makes sense, the operating budget, the capital request, the total budget of $504,404.59. And then the capital budget is split out, you know, the 39,000 again and 15,000 in grants, which I guess I'd also like to ask about. But then this bit written in red, total requested 559,228, where it seems that the capital has been added in twice. That part doesn't make sense to me.
So that, I think it was my writing in orange, because I called Tamara, and I wanted just clarification. Is that the one where I called you tomorrow?
Yeah.
The 559, so I just took the 504 plus the 54,000, and I verified with Tamara. So the total requested amount is 559,228.60.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe 559,231 anyway, but why would you put the 39 in a second time if it's already in the first batch? Right?
I understand what you're saying. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. I was trying to make it clear to you. That's why I verified with them. So was that off by 39 grand then, Tamara?
It's 504, it should be 504 plus, excuse me, it should be,
39, or should we take the 504 plus the 15?
it should be, so the total operating, the 464 plus the 39,000, plus the 15,000.
Okay, so that was my
Sorry.
mistake.
So then well, everything then makes sense if you just ignore the scratches, and I scribble all over my work too. But while we're there, you want to tell us a little bit about that $15,000 in grants, and where it came from and what it goes to?
Absolutely. Our board came up with this proposal to help teachers, and it's not just teachers in the Walpole Public Schools, it could be private schools, and it's to provide a technology grant. In return, what they have to do is create some kind of program through their students using the equipment or something, a podcast that we can air. We started it in September, I believe, and we have not yet received any requests from teachers, but we put it out every single, or we will be putting it out every single year and making that money available.
Okay, so that's Walpole Schools?
And this was
Yes,
23.
correct.
Nice. Okay, great, thank you. I hope that's a good success.
We hope so too. And I should say that Walpole Media Corp funds several projects in town. For example, we paid for the fiber run to Jarvis Farm and the Route 1A fields. So we're here supporting the entire community as well, as just, not just the cable subscribers.
That's wonderful, thank you.
Go ahead, Mark, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that nobody's put in for any of the grants this year. What happens to unspent money? Does that roll back to the town to be reappropriated, or do they hang on to that and use it to offset future?
There's no method for us to come and crawl back that money.
Okay.
So it's been a good faith effort. They've closed things out, and I believe when they've had remaining funds, they've rolled it over to decrease their funding request. That's, okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? So, Jim, just to make sure we're doing this right, I'm going to ask for a motion for favorable action for the funding for Article 17.
And I have the amount, and will everyone just confirm? I wrote down 519, 414, 59.
So I have, yeah.
So moved.
From Mark, second by Doug.
414.
Let me just make my notes here.
Yeah, thank you.
T. Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? One abstain.
yeah.
10-0-1.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There, there. Article 18? You want to do that next, Jim, or
Sure, that's
is there a
fine,
preference?
yeah. So Article 18 is a request to authorize the select board to sell off 3 parcels. Parcel known as Old Town Hall, parcel known as East Walpole Library or Studio East, and the vacant lot on Plain Street. I'll start with the easy one. Plain Street, it's about a 40,000 plus square foot lot, plus or minus. There is about a 400-foot run to sewer, so it's connectable. It's a little bit of a long run, but not too far. Water's right there. It's just a vacant lot, and it's something that the board's asked us to take a look at some of the vacant properties. This was one of the lowest hanging fruit out there. Sell that off, the properties up in that neighborhood. I know there's one on Lincoln Road further down in the beginning. I think it sold for $500,000. Do I think this will be a $500,000 lot? No, but I think it'll be a few $100,000. Second one being the East Walpole Library, currently very, very rarely used. I think I broke it out for you, how much we're paying each year in utilities. It's minimal, but it is something. It's East Walpole, budgeting $2,500 for heating, $1,100 for electricity. Water is about $100, and equipment repair is $1,000. Again, it's underutilized. We had a study conducted as part of the recreation feasibility study report, which looked at all the properties there, which I included for your reference. And if we want to go forward and repair that and do what we need to do there, it's a considerable amount of money we have to, is estimated you'd have to put into there. They estimated about $600,000. So the parking's an issue there to make it a real municipal building, as you may know. So the last one, which probably garnered the most amount of discussion, is the Old Town Hall. We've studied this at length since even before the police department moved out a few years ago. Last night, the select board heard a presentation from the second company that we hired to come in here and take a look at that building. Estimates up to, I think it was $8.1 million that you need to sink into that building to make it a viable facility for either residential or commercial. And really, the board asked to put this on to get a sense of town meeting. What do you want to do with this building? I included the timeline of what we've done since the police department's moved out of there. We've put this out to bid 2 different times, and each time we've gotten 0 bidders interested in it. I've had numerous private developers, both from Walpole and outside of Walpole, come and look at that, and everyone loves the outside of the building, loves the potential, but then they go to crunch the numbers, and it's just, they tell us the same thing: we have to put too much money into that building. We've had the state come in there prior to COVID, and we were optimistic that we'd get about $1 million in a bond bill. That didn't come to fruition on that one. So it's just, we're spending $30,000 a year on that in utilities. The printout I gave you is the investments we placed in that building, dating back. You have 2 sheets here. One's our fixed asset inventory list, and the other one's Donnie Anderson working with Patrick to kind of come up with the capital improvements he's done. So if you take a look at these 2, it's over between $1.5 and $2 million we put into that building, which is a lot of money over the years, whether it be through grants, or through capital, through free cash. So take any questions you may have. If you haven't had a chance to watch the presentation from the select board last night, please do so. But
Do you think it can even be sold?
what?
Do you think it can even be sold?
I don't know. I would like to think so.
I can tell, as a realtor in town, yeah, I mean, I think that it could be, I can see investment potential from an investor point of view in the low inventory of real estate. I would say yes. But I do have a question about the old library. Could that be zoned, is that zoned residential?
Yes. Yeah, so the building commissioners explained to me, it's easily convertible into a single-family house lot. Yeah, that's what it is around there, except the exception of the post office right there, and that little, I think
There's
it
a
was
button
a
up,
shop,
like-
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay,
You were first.
okay, through you, Denny. If the building is sold, Old Town Hall, it will still be subject to all of the historical
Yes.
designations, so that,
And as I was walking in tonight, I heard Patrick, I think, explain to Lisa back, I think it was 1999, the town entered into some type of a historical preservation restriction on the property. And I think it was about $100,000 we got for windows or something like that. Does that sound? Yeah. I don't know how I know that off the top of my head, but, so we agreed to this historical restriction in perpetuity for the exterior of the building. That's why, one of the reasons why the elevator is where it's situated in the building. You don't have a big kickout for an elevator. It's there, so, yeah, it'll be subject to that. And the board will be allowed to put some restrictions on it. You know, you won't be able to, developer won't be able to come in there and put a 40B in where he, you know, puts 2 units of 40B and the rest are all market rate. I think if the board wanted to pursue affordable housing there, you'd make it so it's advantageous to the town, whether it be 80% affordable or maybe 100%. But we could get into those details once the, you know, if
Okay.
town meeting approves this.
thanks.
I got Doug, then Mark.
I'm curious about, in the rec study, it talks about some of the, for the East Walpole Library, it talks about some of the hazardous assessments for the library. It looks like there's lead paint, there's PCBs. Are those things that we'd have to take care of if we sell it, or?
No, we'd sell it as is.
We'd sell it as is.
Being a realtor,
I was just like, nope, you just disclose and sell it as is.
And then a second question, it doesn't say it in the article, and I don't know that it needs to, but all the proceeds will go back into town coffers. It's just,
oh, yeah, it would come in as a general fund, then it would, local, it would come in as a local receipt. We close it out to general fund. I assume Jody and Lisa might book it in as we did the Coney Street property just within the last
Yeah,
year.
it'll come in as general fund revenue, sale of surplus land, and then it'll fall to free cash.
thank you.
So I've had dreams of the old town hall courthouse becoming a brewery downtown that I could walk to. But, so in my mind, is it really, in order to do that, you're basically looking at putting about $8 million into it because you're changing the design or the function? Is that, my reading that correct?
Yeah, and actually, that one, he made a note of it to say, it was I was reading through this again last night, $8.1 million, and that doesn't, he made a note somewhere here, it doesn't account the inflation over the last few years, so probably gonna be even higher.
So you can't find the 8 million in OPEB or in the school budget?
Priorities.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Other questions?
Sounds like a good opportunity for you, Mark.
I just find it astounding that the amount of money that it takes to get it up to the code, to really try to do something else fun with the building.
What about the parking facilities? They're really almost non-existent for the town hall. Yes,
They
no?
are. I mean, what we would have to do is, that strip right in back of Jalapenos, that's, currently it says FD. It's just a matter of us moving the blacking it out, moving. When firefighters show up for a fire, they park wherever they want, so they can get in, change, and get in the truck and go out. So, they're not gonna listen to the parking restriction anyways, which is good, but we can change that.
Can I, just one other question? Is there so the town received the money for the historical thing. Is there an obligation for the town to maintain the building?
Historic.
Like, just say no one bids on it, so it's just gonna sit there and it's gonna be 30 grand a year and then more to maintain it. I mean, does it eventually just fall apart and you take it down and sell it?
Under my watch, we definitely wouldn't allow that to happen. What we would have to do is continue to maintain, and I think if this goes down or it doesn't pass a town meeting, the message the board would get, and I've talked to some of the board members about it, that's the message that town wants us to invest in it. The problem is we have so many other things. Thinking of Doug, when we sat in this room and listened to the pool presentation about the different pools and how, they need to come up. That's roughly $7 million plus each pool. and we get the school there, it's so low on the list, I don't know when we'll be able to get to it.
Right, yeah. So my question isn't so much like what Walpole does with it. I'm just curious about this model that the town takes over these historical buildings, and then they become this albatross around the town where you're putting money into the buildings, and at what point does the town finally say, enough's enough? We don't want to be putting a lot of money into a building, we want to do something else, but there seems to be no avenue to get out from underneath it.
For this particular building is not really a lot because of the historical significance of the building. Another building that comes to mind is where the old food pantry is located, right at, on Washington Street next to the water treatment plant. We're likely gonna just knock that building down, put some storage containers on it, use it for storage. We can do that because that building's falling apart. So we're waiting for the food pantry to move their freezers out of there because they don't use it anymore. That's an easy response. This building over there, it's not as easy. We're gonna have to maintain it one way or another if it doesn't sell or it doesn't pass town meeting.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, I have a comment that I really appreciate all of the papers that you gave us, all of the background in this, and I know it's arduous and it's a lot, but it gives everybody a very clear picture if they haven't. I'm older, so I've been more aware of what's going on, but for new people coming in, it gives a very unique perspective of what the history is, and that, I think, is important.
It's been studied a lot. And,
To death.
And, I think that's what we're gonna bring to town meeting. I'm gonna share these reports with town meeting, the timelines, Mark, what did we call that, committee you were on?
It was the Old Town Hall Reuse Committee, yeah.
And we formed committees to study it. and just-
And we studied it for 18 months before we came back with our our final findings and possible outcomes. And, yeah, what Jim's talking about is $8 million. We basically said, just to preserve it so it doesn't deteriorate was going to be a $1.2 million fix. And if you wanted to restore it to its heyday when it was the, basically the town meeting room, with the gallery upstairs, open back up to the ceiling and so forth, it was going to be between 5 and 7 million, depending to what extent you gutted and had to shore things up again. And now it's at 8 something, so, and that's only 4.5 years old, that report, I think, from us.
So the whole building, square footage wise, is 15,000-ish, right? So even at
Just
8
shy.
million.
Yeah,
It's $515 a square foot.
yeah.
It's still, like, that's what things are going, like, it's,
Yeah.
the number makes sense
Well,
with the size of it.
I mean, I don't think we didn't pass an article to take care of the shoring up. We just demoed the old police station section down below, right, in the basement.
We appropriated some money for it through capital, which Dawn has used, and
Yeah.
then we got a grant for about $75,000, which we used, boiler.
Yeah.
So it's not like we've totally continued to let it, we've addressed the
Yeah.
problems that come up. The select board just appropriated up to $300,000 in ARPA funds, we spent about 94 in that, some of it going towards the study, Dawn's doing some work inside. And we tried to use it the best we can. We still have emergency management operating out of there in one office, and Trish from the Board of Health, the nurse, has run her vaccination clinics out there, so.
But the one thing that we outlined in our report and was subsequently reconfirmed was that if you do any extensive renovation in the basement, we have to go back and do underpinning of the foundation, because as soon as you take a wall down in that basement, you've now put all the burden on the exterior wall, and the exterior wall is not built to hold the structure without those interior walls.
Wow.
And so, yeah, if you turn around and say, yeah, we just want to take this wall down over here, now all the burden is on the outside walls, and because of settling in the age, that foundation is not designed to hold the vertical structure. You need to re-support the upper floors and underpin the foundation and put in true footings, because the study we had done, there wasn't true footings all the way around the foundation. So,
Hypothetically, I don't know where to direct this, but if it was not deemed a historical building, would that make it easier to sell or not?
it's just harder because it has to go through the historical society, it has to have more approvals, and there's less you can do with it. So it will make it a little bit more difficult, but some people are looking for that historical project.
Exactly.
So
Okay. Thank you.
it's a smaller
Lisa?
buyer pool.
If we are the generation that loses that building, I will feel bad. I will feel ashamed. I wouldn't be averse to letting it limp along for $30,000 or $50,000 a year for utilities until the town is in a position to do something about it. I understand it's a low priority, but it seems to me that, 10 or 20 years down the line, maybe the pennies will have amassed into something that can save it. However, I also think it's wise to bring it before town meeting in this way, to say, well, should we just sell it? I think it's important to get a mandate from other people in the town, and hopefully this will get enough publicity before town meeting so that RTMs can also talk in their community. So it's not just 120 people, but that it's really a fairly sizable group of people who said, you're right, it's too big a project, we can't do it, or, okay, we can't do it right now, but we're not ready to give up yet. I would like town meeting to direct the town. I would like a town meeting to direct the town to say, no, we're not ready to give up on it yet. But whatever the vote is, that's an appropriate vote to have. I do wonder if keeping these all in one article makes sense. Don't you think people are going to want to vote separately on each part of it?
I actually spoke to town council about this already. We are allowed to break this out.
Okay.
I believe Dan would probably allow it, that's within his purview, but the way it's written, it can be easily broken out. If town meeting wanted to approve, I don't have it in front of me, items 1 and 2, or vote them out by item 1, yea or nay, and go down the list like that, so we can break it out. So tonight, Lisa, if you'd like to break it out, you could say, I'd like to break this out so we take a position on all three buildings.
I'd probably let somebody who's used to saying things in the proper language make that call. But I was also wondering if we did break it out, is it a little bit improper to present it like this without any other possibility? What would we do if we didn't sell it? I think not. I think it's correct to just say, we could sell it, and then if they say, no, don't sell it, then in 6 months' time, we come back and say, all right, here are some different options. But I'm just wondering, it's a little blunt to just say, we'll sell it or we won't, without saying there's a plan,
Well, I think what it is this is just to give direction to the board of directors to make, board of directors. Select board, sorry, came from one of those earlier. For the select board to give them the authority or to not give them the
Okay.
authority.
Okay, I mean, it seems, there's no plan, and that's not a great feeling, but this is where we start.
But I think then they can make the plan.
Yeah, okay.
Can I just jump in? So we're contracting a group right now called the Peregrine Group. So a couple months ago, the board authorized us to work with this group. The purpose initially of working with them was for them to help us reposition the property for reuse. So part of their initial review involved, going over that Compass report, checking with Compass, and figuring out what uses and other options were available for that building, and figuring out funding schemes that would support those types of uses. They did that, and they came up with that presentation. I don't know if you had a chance to look through it and say what he calls a barrier to entry for all those different options. So whether it's housing, whether it's for commercial use, whether it's for office use, each one of those different options carries a different barrier to entry. So that's what's led to the presentation of this article now, is that we've done that step of working with a objective, non-biased, expert in, these unique real estate transactions. This company was involved with the reuse of the Medfield State Hospital, which for those that know, it is a unique property. So, we've gone through that effort of what are those options and, what are those gonna cost, and that's what I think was led to the board evaluating that and determining like, hey, these are what these different options would cost, or is town meeting prepared to invest that kind of money or not?
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't want you to think that we're coming with.
No, you're right, the plans are here, we're just not promoting one or proposing one. But that would be after the town decides whether or not to keep the thing.
So Lisa, I was just thinking, if you did want to break it out, how I would write this, I think my suggestion would be to direct the TA to break out this article into 3 separate recommendations. Because you make, the article is the article, but FinCom makes the main motion in town meeting. So break the article out into 3 separate motions for each parcel. So A would be, that, and that's the way we did it that way, if that's the way the committee wants to go.
Okay, well, should I wait until discussion's finished, or shall I make that motion?
Let's wait till it, because I actually was going to raise the same topic after discussion was finished, so, perfect. Brian?
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, as much as I'd hate to see it go, I think the numbers don't lie. I believe the town's done their due diligence, sending it out to RFP twice, having a committee study it for 18 months. We've tried, and so I feel confident, knowing that the exterior is going to stay the exterior. I feel this is the proper direction to go at this time.
All right, so, I guess I can't make the motion, but,
I'll make the motion. Make the motion to break out the articles to 3 separate motions.
Second.
so Brian, second Josette. So then it would,
Article on 3 separate motions.
so let me ask this question. Would you want to, this is Article 18 now.
Yes.
Would you bump everything down, or would it go to?
No. So my suggestion would be is to break out the article into 3 separate motions and work with town council to ensure that the will of the committee is carried out in the wording that's presented. I know what you want to do. You want to say favorable. action.
18A, 18B,
Yeah,
18C.
yeah. And just work with town council, because we did this years and years ago when the police station came up, because we were, I think it was a police station, one of the buildings, because one of the source was a borrowing, one was free cash. There was different amounts that needed to get past the town meeting, so we were prepared. I just have to go back and look, but I'll work with town council to carry out the will of the committee.
From a procedural standpoint,
You need to vote to break out the question.
yeah, I want to just go through the procedure first, just to make sure. So vote to break out the question, each question, and then we'll vote,
Vote to break out the question into 3 separate items.
that's one. And then we would vote on each of the 3 separate items
Correct.
separately afterwards, correct?
Yes.
And that would be the follow-up at town meeting would also be, they'd be voted on individually, correct?
Yeah, and that's what we'll.
And that's, I think, a safer way of
Dan
doing
doesn't
it.
do the screen anymore, but what we do is we make sure it's in the packet that this is the motion and it's broken out for this way, for this reason.
We have a motion that's been moved and seconded, so, and that motion is to separate the 3 properties into 3 separate votes at town meeting. We'll figure out the correct
Yeah.
legal and nomenclature later. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. All right, so, break out. So now can I get can I get a motion for what I would call 18A, which would be for the town hall?
So moved.
Moved and second by Brian.
Is it a favorable, you said a motion?
Yeah, a motion, that's the correct
Clarify
question.
your
Yeah,
motion.
that's what I
Clarify
was
your
cautious,
motion.
I was
Yes.
cautious on my phrasing there, so.
So I'll make a motion to allow the select board to.
So favorable
Favorable
action,
action on
action to
18A.
s-
On 18A.
Yes.
town hall. And Brian, you second that?
Yep.
So is that Doug or Mark?
Doug.
Doug, and then Brian seconded. So the motion now is for favorable action to authorize the select board to sell, lease, or convey
Yeah.
the old town hall. So those in favor? Yeah, that's what, I wanted to make sure, because I wasn't sure.
3, 4,
11?
6,
Yeah, I'm a yes, yeah, so that's 11.
Okay.
Then I assume 0, 0.
Okay.
I don't have to ask the next two.
Let the people decide.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't sure if people wanted to vote against, you're not in support of the favorable action because you would like to keep it and you represent that here.
No, I'm in favor of letting the town
Town
meeting
meeting
deal with it.
vote.
Okay.
Same here.
It's interesting because the 2 of us plus you, and I think there's a couple of other minds in here, are on the exact same track. So we're on the same track whether the feelings, emotions are there or not.
Just for purposes of, if people comment on the Finance Committee voting unanimously for the sale of Town Hall. You might want to clarify that our views are, we wanted to leave it to your body to make that decision.
Yeah.
We each have our own personal things, and I, for one, will vote against it at town meeting, but I wanted to at least have town meeting
Make the
have our
decision.
action.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
great. So,
Just one question, though. The way this is read, this just would give the select board the authority to do this. This doesn't direct them that they have to do it. They can hang on to it if they want.
No, certainly.
aye, so now looking for a motion.
Favorable action on B, which is the East Walpole Library.
Great. Do I have a second? Brian, so that's Mark T. and Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? 11-0-0. And can I have a motion for 18C?
So moved for favorable action on the intersection, property at the intersection of Kingsbury Street and Plain Street, as noted in the article.
Second.
By Jean.
Mark and Jane.
Mark T. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? 11-0-0. Excellent. So that's Article 18. That takes us to,
Kenny, just one question. With the proceeds of any sale, it just goes into a general fund, or is it
It'll close out to free cash, yeah.
Okay.
water and sewer. Articles 5, we already did
6 and 8.
6 and 8.
Water is 6. Five was prior year.
That's right.
Current year, yeah.
Okay, I'll give a quick introduction and hand it over to Scott. So I believe all of you have the paperwork that was provided to the commissioners last week. Basically, what we have here is a balanced budget, obviously. The commissioners haven't taken a vote on the water and sewer rates. They usually don't until late May, June sometime. Commissioners did discuss this Monday night. We were in this meeting, and it was relayed to me that generally the commissioners were supportive of what was presented to you. And we've been working side by side with, actually, majority of the commissioners have come in, met with Jody, met with Scott, reviewed everything, and I think we're in a better place. Everybody's more comfortable today than when we were about a year ago, where it was a little contentious, and so I think we're in a better spot than we were a year ago. Rates have been performing very well. People are using their water. The tiered system has been in effect for, what, 3 years now? 4 years? Yeah. 3 or 4. Yeah. So with that, I'll kind of hand it off to you, Scott, and have at it.
Good evening, Scott Gus with Superintendent Sewer Water.
Any specific questions as far as just do you want to run through the rates, Scott, what's being discussed? Because I know that's going to be your question, well, what are the rates? Because generally, the budget is the budget, especially in the sewer side. I think it's about 79%, 75% of the assessment on the sewer side comes from the MWRA assessment.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a fixed cost.
Sewer's pretty fixed.
Yeah. And as far as like personnel, we're not looking to add any additional personnel there. Pretty standard increase on the personnel side. Mark, you did ask about indirect cost and how do we come up with that? So I included the indirect cost study assessment that was conducted by the Pioneer Institute in mid-2022, so it's relatively new. We've gone forward and used those rates that were suggested. And we were, I gotta say, we were pretty close over the years versus what they came in at and what we were using historically, but we did want to study it just to make sure that everything was done above board. Anything really to add, Scott or Rick or Mr. Chairman, anything?
We're good.
Great. Do we have any questions do we, start with water, and then if we have questions on sewer, let's start there. I'm flying. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Through you, Denny. Just a question on laborers I see the request was for 459 and change, and there's a little discrepancy. Jim, you had a different number for that line?
Yeah, you bumped up labor by $12,000 approximately.
What was my note in there? Oh, I added extra funds in, I'm looking in the Excel spread. JJ added extra money in for water system tech reclassification and standby. So what I did there is I added $1,900 plus 57 plus 48. Thanks, Jody. So this is the water systems techs. Over the last few years, we've been really fortunate. We've had a couple of positions come up. It's a really tough position to replace because you need all the necessary, what license is it, Scott, that you need?
It's a drinking water license and treatment.
So you need all those licenses in there. We've been trying to attract and retain people. So that was a bump there in anticipation of the negotiations, which they're set to ratify their contracts within the next week or so. So the negotiations are going very well. So, and it's the night differential. They're looking for an additional % there. That's why I came up with the $1,900. So, Rick or Scott, did I miss anything on that one? I don't think so. Call Jerry.
And then just, thank you, and clarification on the professional services pump, is that the catch basins that they go around?
No. These are things like the well cleanings, the treatment plants, the pump stations. So the biggest increase here was due to a few factors. The Willis Water Treatment Plant, we have membrane technology, and we have a contract with the manufacturer to come out annually. That contract is going to go up by 5% this year. We're doing an additional cleaning and redeveloping of the wells to maintain them. And something new is on the SCADA system. SCADA is the software that runs the treatment plants. We've just been upgraded on this phase 2 SCADA this year. They've changed the business model, so now there's license renewals for the software. And if those renewals aren't maintained, then we're not going to get support.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the renewals. Is that an annual, or is it like a 3 to a 5 year contract?
It's an annual.
It is an annual. Okay, thank you.
It's not a budget question. So we're enjoying a snowless winter, we're saving money on the budget. Are we gonna pay for this with not having enough water or curtailing the water usage in town, restrictions because we're not getting the snowfall that we thought?
Well, we're going to have restrictions in any case because it's part of our water management permit. We have no choice in that. It'll still be 2 days a week unless we are under the conditions of drought again. That's triggered by the stream fall, monitoring gauge in Norwood. So as long as that stays okay, there's no shortage.
If I could just add, even though we haven't had much snow, it's been warmer, and the moisture that has come is in the form of rain. So, and the fact that the drought has long, gone, we're almost at normal amounts of rainfall at this point, so.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Just want to make a comment. Can you hear me okay?
Actually, you know what? We did get a complaint when I was having the audience talk. Yeah. Without getting near it for the recordings.
Just want to make a comment. So last year, we heard you guys as well, as far as how we use retained earnings. And last year, we did do the budget. We did use 80,000 worth of retained earnings on the water side. We were able to not use it on the sewer side. The budget that we're working on now reflects no retained earnings on either side, so.
That's wonderful. That was going to be my question. so-
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
Excellent.
Good job.
Other questions?
So will this be your goal going forward to continue as you started right now, as far as you're doing the budget?
Yes.
Or is that going to be flexible year to year depending upon? Do
We
you
have
a
three
mandate?
commissioners here, and.
I think principally, we're in agreement with it.
Okay.
If we got into a situation where, we either have to increase 15 or 20% or use some retained earnings, we might have a discussion, because we want to keep increases nominal and, water affordable, so.
Yeah, it's no different than any other organization that has retained earnings or has a fund for capital. Sometimes there's an anomaly and you run over, or you have a margin of error, 15 to 20%. You got to, I think Jim sent you the consultant report of Pioneer, so he just validated what we were hypothesizing as a policy, as a percentage of retained earnings. That is a goal to maintain going forward.
Great.
So, I drafted a motion, because I knew you might, because this water and sewer, the articles are really contentious as far as the fees. So I asked Jody, just in anticipation of you may be voting tonight, so the motion you do have in the packets, one of the packets I handed out, it's, looks like that.
So it is regularly moved and seconded that the following sums be appropriated to the Water Enterprise Fund and expended under the direction of the Department of Public Works for the purposes of operating the water department in fiscal year 2024. Personal services in the amount of $1,101,814. Expenses in the amount of $1,993,010. Debt service in the amount of $1,713,217. And that the sum of $4,808,041 be raised as follows: from user fees of $4,232,646, fire suppression fees of $50,000, in miscellaneous receipts in MWPAT in the amount of $525,395. Is that the motion?
That is the motion. Jody checked it, Scott verified it, Rick checked it. So it's been quadruple checked on our end.
So there is a,
I move favorable action as outlined.
perfect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Scott. Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstained? So it's 11-0-0. Perfect. On the sewer side, do we have questions, comments? Anything from the commissioners that they want to say? Don't feel obligated.
As in the past, the MWA assessment is the thing that really drives it. And the only other discussion that we had of any length was the contribution to the budget of the septic facility. And after having the price per gallon for haulers was 7 cents per gallon, and it had been that way for a long time. And last year, as a result, as you're well aware, trying to fit the, work the budget out, we decided to raise the rate to 8 cents. And what we've seen is a dramatic drop in revenue in that. So we're looking at now doing 6 cents a gallon, which will make us competitive, and also making an effort to contact some of the haulers, finding out, what would make it easier for you to use our facility. One of the problems that we have is that we're restricted to taking only loads from MWA sewer communities. And we're at the edge of the border. So you'd think, well, the surrounding communities, Medfield, not in the MWA, Foxborough, not in, Norfolk, not in, Sharon, not in. So if you're a hauler just using the local areas, a lot of their business, they can't deliver. And also, a lot of the haulers, their trucks can handle multiple loads. You got a mixed load, you got to go someplace else. So we're hoping to be able to encourage, one, by being competitive on the price, and then seeing things like operating the facility, having it staffed full-time. So right now, you have to call in 30 minutes in ahead. And so if we have someone there all the time, you're not wasting, I've got a load, I got nothing to do for the next 30 minutes waiting for somebody to go there to open up the facility. So things like that we hope to increase the revenue. We're not looking in the budget to get the same amount as what we had hoped to get in FY '23. We've actually lowered the amount, and it's a something that we think that we can do.
Lower the price and see if you can increase volume.
Right.
Excellent. Right?
Through you, Denny, with that bill, where are the other sites that they are now going to, and what are they currently charging?
So they're,
Taunton, Cranston.
yeah, it's Cranston, Rhode Island, and Taunton.
One of the surprising things when I was investigating this is you would think that, oh, it's mostly Walpole probably is the bulk. They only represent like around 25% at most. It's like about 20 communities. Some of them as far as like Bedford, Wilmington, bringing, a load or two. But I think, if I remember correctly, I think it's either Stoughton and Canton are the biggest. They, aren't too far away.
What are they
yeah.
charging?
No, well, those, I'm saying the
here.
loads that come to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what are those other sites that they're now going to? If
When we
you're,
had looked at it last year, I think most of them were around 6 cents.
Yeah.
We've got a marketing guy now. Jeff is very interested in this, which is good. He's taken a business approach. Traditionally, I think we looked at it as a government agency. We need more revenue, just raise the price. But just put the customer aspect to it. He's looking into who the haulers are, what is their conduct of business, what style, how do they decide where they're going, what are the economics? And we're changing our policy and pricing to conform to the market to get hopefully healthy revenues out of this resource.
have you reached out to the haulers? And
Yeah,
asked
that's what-
where they're going and
That's
why
another
they're
thing.
going? And it's-
Yeah, we're not just looking at changing the price per gallon. It's also contacting them directly, and that's ongoing right now, to ask them, not just to assume that the price is the problem, the whole problem, why are you not coming here? What's the reason? Can we change something, is something we're doing or something we're not doing? To make the incentive there to come here.
Okay, great.
The price and the staff seem to be the drivers.
No, not necessarily. It's just, these are things we're looking at.
Looking at, got, understood, yeah.
What's gonna make it easier for you to dump in Walpole? Tell us.
Yeah.
See if we can accommodate.
Legally.
Yes.
We got Mark, yeah, Mark and then Mark.
You said that mixed loads have to go somewhere else, so if they go and they do 2 houses in South Walpole, then go across and do 3 houses in Foxborough, now they got a full load, they can't come back to Walpole because they've mixed it, correct?
Right.
So, how do you incentivize them to say, hey, can you book multiple Walpole units and use our facility? As opposed to, I'm completing my run, but I'm gonna go here, there, and there, and now that it's mixed, I have to go somewhere else.
Well, the thing I would say is, yes, he picked up 2 loads in Walpole. And now, if he could drop in Walpole, as opposed to right now.
Half an hour appointment.
Yeah, I gotta make
without
an
having to make
appointment, I
an
gotta,
appointment, yeah,
what am I
sure.
sitting around for 30
Yeah.
minutes? No, I'm heading to my next one, and
Is there any economy to be recognized by dumping partial loads instead of full loads for them?
We'll have to talk to the haulers.
We give them frequent flyer points and pastries and free coffee.
What I was thinking was, it's like.
We'll have it
hey,
turned around, don't worry.
Coffee and donuts, I don't know, they'll do something.
30 dumps get you 1 free.
But I mean, if we're 6 cents and everybody else is 6 cents, they don't want to spend their time at,
Waiting
doing
for
partial
units.
dumps when they could be out, one dump be done and then out filling it up again. If there's an incentive to say, hey, if you've got Walpole loads, come here and at a certain threshold, you're going to get a rebate. To incentivize them to block more Walpole units together and dump at our facility, we'll get you a rebate. As opposed to, I'm gonna go and mix my loads and then have to drive it to Taunton.
Sounds like you guys are working on that and got a good plan. so.
Okay.
Mark?
I'm curious why you cannot take non-MWRA loads.
Because it's going to the MWRA.
It flows into
We
their sewer
can't go from
lines.
one community that's not MWRA into the MWRA system.
I think it may be partially part of the lawsuit that originally resulted in the cleanup of the Boston Harbor. I remember being on the commission when we actually built this facility. Originally, we were going to have and Cliff Snuffer always called it a Taj Mahal. It was going to be a much bigger facility. And then all of a sudden, we're not going to be able to take loads outside of the MWA. And you're just looking at the map saying, everybody that's around us can't come to us. And that's why it's a real small facility. One of the other things, now John suggested, could we is there a way to make the driveway bigger so bigger trucks could use the facility? And if you're familiar, it's right near Robbins Road. The parking lot's up here, the facility's down here, and it's wetlands all the way around. There's not much of an option to change the facility, so it's
So
been a
the short
problem
answer,
for,
Mark, is it's prohibited by permit.
yeah.
Okay.
But we can always appeal and look for a window
We
of
tried-
opportunity
we
or
appealed. We tried
there's,
to appeal to the legislature,
some
didn't work.
avenues to look at there.
But we're taking a much deeper look than we ever did before. Like I said, I always thought, oh, most of the loads are Walpole. And then when I started looking, I go, people are driving from Bedford and Wilmington to come down for, and, you know, we don't have a lot of loads, but it became clear that we do get an awful lot of loads from elsewhere. And there's a,
Bedford and Wilmington are porta-johns,
yeah.
they're not households.
But the fact that you're going Stoughton, Canton, Natick has a fair number, Needham also.
Excellent, okay, thank you.
Could it also be less homes have septics?
Right,
Yeah,
about 35% now are on septic.
yeah.
And how many loads a day roughly, or a week, or?
It varies. You could have some days where there's only a couple deliveries, and another day they'll get just a barrage of them.
I also noticed that there was some seasonal
Yeah.
impact. You're
I
not
mean, it
getting
would-
as many loads during the winter as you do during the,
It seems rough to keep it open, you know, a 40-hour week if you're only getting maybe a handful of loads a day.
If the
That's-
feedback we get from the haulers, though, is that's what the problem is, maybe we do a 1 or 2 month trial to see if it increases volume. You know, these are ideas right now. We're reaching out to the haulers to see what the problem is.
Wonderful.
Hypothetically, in addition to everything you're doing, do you have the staff to have somebody down there on a more permanent basis than being called and having somebody go down in 30 minutes?
Right now, we're doing a trial run program. We're gonna staff it fully and see where that takes us. And if it's justifiable to have it fully staffed, we'll make that happen.
Okay. Thank you.
One other question. How do they know whether it's MWRA or not? What's that?
They have to keep a log of all the pickups.
The drivers have to keep a log of where they pick,
Yeah.
okay.
And we do spot checking, so when we get a manifest and it says, is it this address, this is the homeowner's name, this is their phone number, we call that number, we ask, did you have a hauler come to your house today? So we don't just, blindly trust.
I think the MWRA audits, and they check 25% of the manifest, just randomly to see, they actually contact households like.
So I won't turn on the news one morning and hear about Walpole taking illegal loads, okay.
Great for our
But
image.
you come up in the health field that this has become like a forensic resource now. The waste, they want to test it. They want to know what communities COVID comes from, where drug abuse is. They're doing all this by testing the waste. So at some point, given the way this stuff is going with biotech, they may be paying us so much a gallon, we won't give it to the MWA. We'll sell it to some waste company that's doing medical research.
All right, so we've got a motion here that Jim wrote up. I'll read it again just to make sure. It is regularly moved and seconded that the following sums be appropriated to the Sewer Enterprise Fund and expanded under the direction of the Department of Public Works for the purposes of operating the sewer department in fiscal year 2024. Personnel services of $326,973. Expenses in the amount of $4,975,595. Debt service in the amount of $77,200, and the sum of $5,379,768 be raised as follows. User fees in the amount of $4,833,733. Miscellaneous receipts in the amount of $546,035.
Move favorable action as just read.
Thank you, Mark. Second, Mark T. and Mark S. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? 11-0. 0-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you.
Nice work, this looks great. That's it for today.
I just got a couple of quick things, Denny, if you don't mind.
Well, please, Jim.
3 things. State aid, our state aid numbers came out from the governor's last week. We're looking close to about a $1.5 million increase over what we projected, which is, in my time in Walpole, I don't ever remember such an increase. Jody and I have been going back and forth. I've reached out to all the cities and towns in Norfolk County to talk to their managers. I got some pretty animated responses. One was from Foxborough. I want to know what Johnson is doing to get the $1.5 million from the state. We're looking at a net increase of $1,500 right now. Medway got back to me and said, my local aid increase is $4,600. I'm contemplating assembling a team of financial and political stakeholders to determine how to best allocate the windfall of money the Commonwealth allocated. The guy from, some of them got into it and just said we're basically level funding. It seems like most of them are running, we're the only town that got this amount of money. I think Randolph got an extra $465, but I want to be really cautious how I formulate my recommendation to the committee. And I probably want to take the whole month of March because we're not set to discuss the budget until the end of the month. Obviously, I'm mindful of what Mike Frisha and Superintendent Goff mentioned, that, they requested, and we have a gap about 200,000. So I even reached out to the Divisional Local Services and asked their undersecretary what his thoughts were on it. He basically said, having zero insight on what the legislature will do, I'd use history as a predictor and say the Chapter 70 numbers will remain the same, and unrestricted general aid will go to the governor's number will be the floor. Senator Rush and Representative Rogers. Senator Rush is looking into it for me. Representative Rogers said, just be safe, be cautious, because obviously there was a predictor last month that came down and said state revenues dipped in January. Representative Phillips basically gave me the same advice. We don't see it going backwards, but we're not 100% sure. So I know there is going to be a push to say, add that money all in there. My concern would be we add it in there, and then come June, the budgets, fail to meet expectations at the state level, and we'll have to go back and cut it. So I'm going to come up with a plan, working with Jody and some of the other people that we rely on. But I'll have some recommendations. I know a couple of you have already asked me, what are we going to do with all that money? So just more of a heads up.
Great.
So you're going to be treating this, I hope, like you do the mitigation money that we used to get from the prison?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm very much mindful of, my next item on the list was Tri-County. And they estimate our number to be $1,145,000 if that were.
Before we get in that, did you have a specific question?
Well, yeah, that state aid, that doesn't or does not include prison mitigation?
Does
not. So there's still a possibility that they could push for some six-figure number for prison mitigation in this year's budget,
But in this current fiscal year?
the upcoming fiscal year.
Next one, no, I haven't. So you're talking about the 750?
Yeah.
No, but that usually doesn't get added in.
I know, we don't add it in, but I mean,
Yeah,
my
the state,
thought
I'm
was,
saying.
this
the
might
state
be
does.
in lieu of, so we might not ever see that 750 again.
I don't think so. I think their formulas are so, I don't completely understand, but that 750's always been outside of local aid numbers, and it was just a special Walpole situation. I think one other town
Yeah.
gets, it's an earmark, you think,
Yeah.
Pedro, gets like 260 or something like that. I think it might be Shirley or Framingham or something. But we never counted that money, and I don't think it's in lieu of that money going away, so.
My personal preference would be to use any of that $1.4 million sparingly and leave the other $1 million for fall town meeting to turn around and says, hey, they came through, they gave us the $1 million, this is what we're proposing to do with it then.
Yeah.
Be very conservative, because if all of a sudden they come back and say, yeah, we spent $750 of the 1.4, but they're only going to give us 500. No, we're still back to cutting. It's easier always to turn around and say, yeah, we're going to add something at the end.
See what we get over the next month.
He's always
Yeah.
ultra-conservative,
Yeah.
and I'm really glad of that.
Aye.
So
Tri-county?
I started to talk about Tri-County a little bit. So I'm mindful of that cost potentially coming. We'll know after October 24th what's going to happen. But something that we've been working, we met with the managers in the area towns earlier this week, and I've already reached out to Representative Rogers. The takeaway from that meeting was there was an idea that came out, let's not focus on getting funding from the state for that building. What if we tied the question to funding itself? So basically, I've reached out to Representative Rogers, Michael's doing the same thing in Medway, asking our reps to see if we could amend the Mass General Law that authorizes the spending for a new building to also include a funding source. And our argument is, still tie it to the question, if 1,000 people vote, 501 people in the 11-member district, 11-town district, vote in favor of it, it passes, but it also includes a funding source, which would be a debt override. So it wouldn't necessarily mean cutting teachers, firefighters, police officers, whatever else across the board. It comes with a funding source with it. Representative Rogers was really interested in it. He told me he'd work probably with the people from Franklin and the surrounding towns to see if we can push that forward and advance it in time for this vote. That would be huge if we could do that.
Does that require the state legislature?
Yes.
To
because
approve?
It's a Mass General Law. Yeah. And the vocational schools are covered under this particular Mass General Law. I'll share with you the draft that we put together, so it would be great if it worked. I don't know if it will, but I think it's one of those, I like this solution better than hoping that the state will come in and give us a bunch of money from the Mass School Building Association funds, because I don't see that happening, because there's so many school buildings in that queue right now. For them to totally revamp the formula in such a short time frame is not gonna happen.
It's not going to happen. You're right.
And then, last item, Article 31. Your draft that I sent out last week did not include an Article 31. I was having town council look at it. We weren't sure if we needed it on there, but we left it in there, which is actually an authorization for an easement, any and all easements onto the middle school property, coming from East Street or Washington Street. We added that in there to protect us, because Verizon's gonna need some access to that site, because and so is Verizon that we know of right now, because the utilities currently come in from Washington Street. The proposal is to have them come in from East Street. So that one, I think, should be a no-brainer. It's just more or less protection, and it's town council wrote it as a catch-all for any and all easements that may be necessary onto that property. So just, I wanted to make note of that. If you're wondering where did that come from, why wasn't this really talked about? It recently came up, and I said, instead of just focusing on one for Verizon, let's do a catch-all. So we can come back in a few months and do something with all that meeting. That's it.
So schedule-wise, we don't have another meeting till the 27th. which I'm going to be away again. That's budget articles if necessary, snow and ice if necessary, and is it Article 9?
So I've scheduled it that far
Yeah,
out.
so that's,
When we were talking about the schedule, because if you notice on 327, I have all of the, we have all of the planning articles, the zoning board articles for the zoning amendments scheduled for 327, but they're set to hold their public hearing on the 16th. So just to know, it's sooner, it's good that it's sooner rather than later on that one.
okay.
That's a first.
But I guess my point is, Denny, if you wanted to move it up to the following week to discuss those zoning articles, that'd be fine too.
That would be on the 6th?
No,
Move it
it's the
up.
20th.
Moving it back to the 20th.
Yeah, but your call. You can leave it as is, but, I'd ask on the budget item, you're set to hear the union contracts on 4/6. Given what I just told you about the budget discussion, I'd ask for the budget discussion to be pushed back as long as possible.
Yeah.
We need to get everything in the booklet, obviously, and the deadline for that is, the last meeting is April 6th, to get it published and everything.
Well, it said, we have the 10th, April 10th, right?
April 10th, the last for the town meeting packets to get out to the members, because
Oh.
we're required, especially the charter specifies.
I gotcha.
That
So the
contracts
6th.
have to be in there, yeah.
So what are you recommending? I just got myself confused.
You just said you're gonna be away on that.
Yeah.
We can leave it as is.
In good hands with this guy.
Okay, that's fine.
Or we could back it up to the 20th,
20th?
because that'll be the week after
Is
zoning
it
board.
people good at
Yeah.
moving it to the 20th? Just make sure I'm not traveling on the 20th. Screw everyone else up.
My anniversary. That's
I'm
all
not
right.
available on the 20th either, so
First day of spring.
don't worry about
It's
it.
the 25th, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So we'll just leave it as is.
It's confusing.
You don't need me for zoning.
And as far as the contracts, I know I just briefly mentioned them. We're in a good spot right now. We've reached tentative agreements with, I think, four of the collective bargaining units. And I think I might have just reached an agreement with one more this afternoon, so I think I'll have if not all of them, almost all of them, ready to go for this Springtown meeting.
Okay.
And the budget has taken that into consideration, the potential?
We've set aside funds, but those articles require me, per the charter, to present the funding source for year one and the changes to the contracts to town meeting reps.
Our charter, correct me if I'm wrong, you two, we have to state when we have an article that we vote on for the dollar value and how it's being funded, like for an override. Taking in mind Tri-County, I was really surprised, and I was really glad to hear what you and the other communities are presenting as far as the question amendment going forward, because it seemed that it was just going to be an up or down, yes or no vote for it, but there was no value or vote as to what the dollar value was going to be, and that was really, to me, that was really scary, because that's like an open-ended, they can put whatever number they want in there, and we've said yes, and fortunately with our charter, we are held to a different level, correct?
Yes, and I'll share it with you. I have no reason I can't share it with you, but the amendment that we're asking them to consider specifies a dollar amount for the building, $280 million. But I don't think it will change, but it could go up and down as the funding enrollment goes up and down throughout the life of the 30-year borrowing. So right now, I think we're about ranked fourth as far as enrollment at that school. So we've been third. I think last time we were third. I was surprised we were fourth this time. So.
You expect that with the enrollment, the flexibility from year to year, but to have the potential of the override for the new building on top of that, with a blank check, so to speak, was a little unnerving.
Excellent. Anything from anyone else? Any open discussion topics? Anyone want motion to adjourn?
Second.
There you go. Brian,
Second.
Mark?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't think anyone's opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.